Perhaps it's hard to believe, but right as Las Vegas announced record casino revenue, local businesses were struggling to pay their electricity bills. You heard right. Casinos still report billions in revenue each quarter, yet the rest of Las Vegas is living on completely opposite numbers. Family restaurants had to close early to save electricity. Service businesses that have weathered many economic cycles are now counting every penny to stay afloat. And small business owners, the people who keep the community running, are being squeezed by skyrocketing operating costs, escalating rents, and a sharp decline in local customers. The surface of Vegas still shines brightly, but just beneath that layer of lights lies a stark division. A city where money doesn't flow freely, but is concentrated in a few entertainment superstructures, leaving the rest of the community in a state of economic oxygen deprivation. In today's video, we'll peel back the glitz and glamour to see why a city generating record revenue is letting local businesses slowly die. This is probably no longer a problem for a few small shops, but rather the depletion of an entire fundamental economic layer. So, what really happened? And what were the devastating consequences? Everything will be revealed in the next 25 minutes. The end-of-year holiday season has long been considered a time of indulgence for many American families, a time when they allow themselves to spend more freely after a long year of work. However, this year, that atmosphere has become heavy as food prices, rent, and essential costs have all increased simultaneously. The budget for discretionary spending has been tightened, and familiar activities like eating out, drinking craft beer, or visiting a local store have suddenly become luxuries that many people are forced to cross off their lists. This impact directly reached Las Vegas. The city operates on a model of spontaneous spending, eating out, entertainment, shopping. But when households have to prioritize basic expenses, those seemingly small expenditures disappear. That's why this year's holiday season, which should have been a rejuvenating point for local businesses, has become a death sentence. Many business owners say customer traffic has dropped significantly, not only from Americans tightening their belts, but also from international visitors, especially Canadians, who have declined sharply for 2 consecutive months. Among the affected businesses, Huddle Brewing Company is the most notable example. Opened in 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, this brewery has weathered the storm while many other establishments have had to close. But by the end of this year, they were forced to shut down completely because they weren't generating enough stable revenue to sustain operations. Even the Monday after Thanksgiving, a time that's always slow, was unusual. Foot traffic is not only as low as every year, but has generally slowed down throughout the downtown area, revealing a more concerning reality. This year's decline is not temporary, but has persisted for several weeks. When a facility capable of overcoming the pandemic collapses before 2025, the decline in tourism in 2025 is gradually being compared to the 2009 recession. And of course, Huddle Brewing isn't the only case. The born and raised chain has had to close 3 of its 4 locations since March, keeping only the Centennial location open because the remaining establishments did not generate enough revenue to cover licensing costs, inflation, and a sharp decline in customer spending. The cost of renting the space alone, which ranges from $18,000 to $22,000 per month, is already a significant burden for a stable establishment. When customers decrease, this expense becomes a death sentence. Ironically, 2025 was once expected to be a comeback, especially since February 2024 saw 3.37 million visitors, a 9.5% increase year on year, bringing the total number of annual visitors to 41.7 million. But just a few months later, September saw another drop of nearly 8.8%, highlighting the market volatility and lack of stability local businesses need to survive. However, Vegas doesn't seem to truly see that risk. If you're wondering why, the reason is very simple. Total tourist spending in 2024 still increased by 7%, reaching over $55.1 billion. That number is so large that it inadvertently becomes a veil of mist obscuring the issues happening right under the feet of the brightly lit resorts. Because most of that money flows directly into hotel and casino corporations, while small businesses are experiencing days so empty that they can't even afford the electricity bill. The contrast between the rosy financial picture and the bleak reality of the local business reveals that two Las Vegases are coexisting. And as small shops closed one by one, the glittering facade built by statistics began to crack, revealing a city that was decaying from within. But if tourists haven't completely disappeared, what's driving them away from small businesses? Why has spending in Vegas become so inaccessible? The answer begins with the factor that most directly impacts any visitor's experience: price. While many small businesses are struggling due to a lack of customers, a seemingly minor detail reveals a larger problem in Las Vegas. The CEO of MGM admits that resorts on the Strip have lost control of the narrative by allowing the price of a bottle of water to reach $12. An insignificant figure in the total spending of guests, but enough to reflect the feeling of being overcharged that visitors are increasingly repeating. Those who have been to Vegas for many years describe prices increasing too quickly within just 1 year, to the point where the city no longer maintains the image of being cheap, fun, and easy to live in as they once knew it. For them, this change isn't just a few increased fees, but a shift in the very nature of Vegas. From a place everyone could enjoy, to a destination where every expense must be considered. International tourists even say they weren't prepared for the prices of food, drinks, and simple services, turning what should have been a relaxing vacation into a dollar-by-dollar calculation. A trip to Las Vegas costs an average of $1,320, equivalent to $330 per day, placing Vegas among the expensive destinations. The average room rate in February 2024 increased by over 40% compared to the previous year, reaching $248 a night, while the occupancy rate only saw a slight increase. This indicates that the revenue growth of the resorts largely comes from price increases rather than an increase in the number of guests. At the same time, the cost of living citywide also soared to be among the top 10% most expensive in the world, with an average of around $12,400 per month for one person. A context that makes it difficult for all types of services, from small to large, to maintain affordable prices. For the middle-aged and retired group, who were once regular customers, the feeling of not getting their money's worth gradually became the main reason for their reduced frequency of return. And when they left, another vortex formed. The spending that local businesses used to rely on was sucked back into the large resorts, which collected most of the city's revenue, leaving behind small shops with increasingly sparse customers. But the price is only the tip of the iceberg, because even those who are still willing to spend are starting to encounter another barrier. Something not on the restaurant menu or hotel price list, but powerful enough to make both residents and tourists turn away. One of the least noticed but most impactful barriers for local businesses in Las Vegas is parking fees and resort fees. For many residents, the experience of going to the Strip is now blocked right at the entrance. As soon as they drive in, they have to pay about $25 for parking, an amount enough to reconsider their entire plan for going out. Many people compare the parking fee alone to the cost of a family meal, which simply makes them not want to return. This change creates a chain reaction. A brewery in the Arts District reported a significant drop in customers after the city implemented pay to park, despite the area being promoted as Las Vegas's new arts destination. Having to pay just to enter a pub, restaurant, or bar, places that locals used to frequent, is gradually discouraging residents from supporting small businesses located near or within the resort area. Not only that, but the resort fee continues to be a hidden layer of cost that weighs down the guest experience. With a fluctuation of $30-50 USD per night, excluding taxes, the total cost of a visitor's stay often increases by several tens of percent compared to the room price they saw when booking. Those who seek cheap deals are more likely to be surprised, as this fee is only added to the final bill, making the feeling of being tricked unavoidable. As local residents limit their outings, tourists tighten their belts to compensate for unforeseen expenses, leaving small businesses in a double bind. Their regular customers disappear and tourists spend less. In a context where they lack the marketing budget or incentive ecosystem of large resorts, this imbalance makes their survival increasingly precarious. These seemingly small but recurring fees have quietly reshaped the consumer behavior of both residents and visitors, and consequently, the economic life of Las Vegas at the lowest level. But even if they overcome this cost barrier, local businesses face a deeper problem. The cash flow that should be spreading through the community is being sucked back into the city center, where casinos are increasingly tightening their grip on winnings. A notable aspect of the current Las Vegas economic landscape is that even major casino corporations are beginning to admit they have lost touch with consumers. Focusing too heavily on revenue from small amounts, from water bottles and add-on services to incidental costs, makes customers feel less welcome than before. People who have been to Vegas for many years in a row find that they have to spend more on rooms, food, drinks, and when they go to the casino, they can't win anything anymore. This causes them to leave the casino earlier and have nothing left to spend at external shops, bars, or services, which rely on that continuous spending. The absence of big spending international tourists is making things even more difficult. Canadian tourists, who are frequent visitors to Vegas, have almost disappeared from the revenue of many shops in the last 2 months. The decline of a core customer group exposed the extent to which small businesses are dependent on high-spending customers with regular return habits. Meanwhile, the casino is taking advantage of this time. In February 2024, gaming revenue on the Strip increased by over 12% despite only a 9.5% increase in visitor numbers. This shows that each average customer contributes more to the bookmaker. For the entire year of 2024, total tourist spending increased by nearly 50% compared to pre-pandemic levels, yet small businesses continue to complain about declining revenue. Cash flow is therefore concentrated in large resorts, while the spillover into the local community, once the lifeblood of Vegas, is increasingly shrinking. In the past, when players left the blackjack table or slot machines with a little bit of winnings, they would often use that money to have dinner, drink beer, or buy a souvenir. But when the gambling experience becomes lose fast and lose a lot, that spending streak breaks. A city that once operated on a model of widespread spending now sees that cycle reduced to a single point: the casino. This discrepancy raises a significant question. If even every dollar brought to Vegas is being drawn to a single location, how can small businesses survive? While large casinos benefit from tourist cash flow, small businesses in Las Vegas face a much more suffocating reality. Operating costs are rising so rapidly that they are beyond their ability to cope. A brewery in the Arts District stated that costs from raw materials to utilities have increased by 25 to 27% compared to when they opened, making a previously sustainable business model unsustainable. This increase occurred steadily each quarter, creating a simmering but constant pressure that eroded profits. Local bars and restaurants even face a more severe challenge. Rent in many areas ranges from $18,000 to $22,000 per month, not including fees for food, alcohol, and gaming licenses. These fixed assets account for the majority of operating costs and are almost impossible to reduce. When the number of guests decreases, any fluctuations in revenue become a direct blow to the business's survival. Not a few small business owners admit that for many consecutive months, they were losing from start to finish, with no month achieving revenue sufficient to cover costs. Closing some stores is no longer a business option, but has become a survival measure. This aligns with the results of the 2024 Nevada Small Business Survey, which showed that 31% of business owners cited inflation as their top challenge, 23% struggled with cash flow, and 27% faced obstacles in finding capital. 3 bottlenecks that collectively push businesses into a stalemate. Cost pressures don't even stop at the micro-enterprise level. Some scattered reports indicate that major retail chains like Big Lots are planning to close all stores in Nevada, suggesting that even mid-sized units are unable to withstand rising costs. Additionally, the cost of living in Las Vegas is currently estimated to be about 5% higher than the national average and continues to increase by 3% in just 1 year. This high cost base leads to a decrease in real wages, which in turn reduces the spending power of residents and workers, the main customers of many small businesses. In that context, the characteristic models of old Vegas, such as loss-leading buffets to keep customers, have become rare exceptions. Only large casinos have the resources to offset those losses. Local businesses simply cannot operate this way. The disparity in financial resilience is leading to an increasingly stratified service ecosystem in Las Vegas. On one side are those who can absorb rising costs, while on the other are those who are gradually being pushed out of the market. As the cost of a trip to Las Vegas increased faster than expected, this seemingly obvious choice began to be questioned. In 2024, the average cost of a trip to Vegas is around $1,322, equivalent to $330 per day, a price point that many people compare to other options, from all-inclusive cruises to multi-day international vacations. Those comparisons are no longer just for reference. They are becoming the deciding factor in whether Vegas is still worth revisiting. The average room rate exceeds $200 per night, plus resort fees and other surcharges ranging from $30 to $50, significantly increasing the total cost of stay. For many visitors, especially those accustomed to Vegas during its more affordable days, the fact that a short stay here costs the same as or even more than longer trips elsewhere is a deterrent. At the same time, the overall cost of living in Las Vegas is among the 11% most expensive cities in the world, with an average monthly expenditure of approximately $2,414 per person. The high cost base makes it difficult for all related services in the city, from dining and accommodation to entertainment, to maintain prices affordable for the general public. Local businesses heavily rely on the belief that Vegas is a value trip. When that trust fades, they lose their most important layer of objectivity, the people who return regularly because of the feeling of getting their money's worth. This shift isn't dramatic, but it's evident in stable customer groups like Canadians, who used to visit Vegas multiple times a year, but are now visiting less frequently, leaving revenue gaps that small businesses can't fill. And as choices change, consumer behavior changes accordingly. Vegas is no longer considered the default destination for idle money, but rather an option that must be considered. So, are those who were once Vegas's loyal customer base still able and motivated to spend in the way the city has come to rely on for so many years? As travel costs increase year after year, the question isn't just whether Vegas is still appealing, but also whether Americans can still afford to spend in the way the city has relied on for decades. Recent financial surveys show that by 2025, as many as 67% of Americans will be living paycheck to paycheck, up from 63% in 2024. That means most of their income is locked up in essential expenses, leaving little room for travel or leisure. Simultaneously, approximately 26% of the population spends beyond their income, and only 44% find paying monthly bills not too difficult, a significant decrease compared to a few years ago. Nearly a third of low-income households have to spend over 95% of their income on basic needs. In that picture, a Vegas-style vacation, where guests are willing to lose a few $100s and spend a few hundred more on entertainment, becomes a luxury beyond the reach of many. Although inflation has decreased from its peak of 9.1% in 2022, it is still hovering around 3% in 2024. Many middle-income groups are seeing their wages increase slower than the rate of inflation, which continues to erode their real purchasing power. This isn't just a problem for Las Vegas, it's a nationwide trend. Small businesses in the beauty, retail, and food service industries describe customers drastically cutting spending on expensive coffee, beauty services, or boutique goods. Vegas, which functions as an exaggerated version of American spending habits, was therefore directly and most heavily affected. And with most people having to prioritize rent, food, and loan payments, Vegas's spend comfortably and then go home entertainment model is no longer compatible with their economic reality. The customer group that used to sustain the business rhythm of small shops is starting to leave, not because they want to save money, but because they are forced to do so. The shrinking spending power of Americans leads to an inevitable consequence. When wallets are tight, places that demand high spending for a sense of fun, like Vegas, will be the first to be cut from the list. But the impact of this change goes beyond just the spending figures. It also touches something deeper: the emotional attachment of a generation that once saw Las Vegas as a symbol of joy and escape. Beneath record-breaking revenue figures, the oldest thing in Las Vegas is fading: the sense of magic that generations have cherished. People born and raised here often talk about a time when there were no professional sports teams, no billion-dollar events, but there was a distinct sense of community. That was the era when resorts kept guests coming back with generous comps, cheap buffets, and free parking. Small details that made people feel welcome, making both tourists and residents see Vegas as a familiar place. Today, those values that once defined our identity are being eroded. Many residents say they constantly complain about parking prices and fees, two factors seen as signs that the city is moving away from its best version of itself. Even international tourists, who have little cultural connection, reflected on negative experiences, describing the widespread smell of marijuana on the streets as terrible, making them wonder if they would return. This blend of entertainment and discomfort is causing Vegas to lose its characteristic emotional balance. Many middle-aged tourists reminisce about the era when Celine Dion performed regularly, a period when Vegas's entertainment scene was stable, accessible, and iconic. The contrast with the present, where major events have become expensive one-offs, highlights the feeling that Vegas is shifting from a place to return to a place to experience once. In that context, efforts to retain the old spirit are becoming rare. South Point is willing to keep the buffet open despite a heavy loss because they believe it's something guests love and will bring them back to play slots, a way of prioritizing experience over immediate profit. Circus Circus is bringing back paper bingo instead of a computer system, as a gentle reminder of old Vegas when everything was simpler and more accessible. But on the opposite side, the pieces that make up the soul of the city of Las Vegas continue to disappear. Broadacre's Marketplace, an outdoor market with over 1,100 vendors that clearly reflects local culture, has been forced to close indefinitely due to political and security factors. Its disappearance is not just the loss of a destination, but the loss of a significant cultural layer that helped Vegas maintain its distinct identity from cities purely driven by mass tourism. As the elements that make up the Vegasness, from cheap buffets, paper bingo, and traditional markets to the hospitality of the locals, are diminished, local businesses not only lose a steady stream of customers, but also the cultural context in which they can survive. They became lost in the very city that was originally built to serve people like them. Las Vegas is entering a strange period of its own, a city that sets new revenue records, but is gradually losing the pieces that keep it vibrant. The numbers might show prosperity, but the silent closed doors of local businesses tell a different story. A story of a disconnect between the glitz and the reality, between growth and exhaustion, between the Vegas of statistics and the Vegas of everyday life. Is Las Vegas paying the price for pursuing growth at any cost? And if the magic that kept people coming back year after year disappears, what will those record-breaking sales figures mean? If these analyses give you a clearer picture of what's happening in Las Vegas, please like, leave a comment, and share the video so more people can understand the story behind the neon lights. And if you want to keep following in-depth, unbiased, and unvarnished analysis, subscribe. That gives me more motivation to make videos like this. This video is based on publicly available information, reported figures, and content from recently interviewed businesses. The analyses in the video are interpretative and synthetic, not intended to provide financial or investment advice or replace professional evaluation. All data and perspectives are subject to change over time. Audiences should verify information independently if using it for purposes other than reference.